Welcome back to the Drinks from Skulls podcast. It's your host, Matt Smith here, and we have a very special guest. With me today, we have the overlord from Ohio, the guy that's made payment processing cool. He's a family man. He's a guy that tracks rates, and he loves his mates. Mr. Adam Niec, how are you?
Good, man. That's a hell of an intro. Holy shit. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on, dude. Yeah,
I had to take a sip from the skull when I pulled that one off, so you know how it goes.
Yep.
Let's go. I drink from skulls. Drink from the skulls of my enemies.
So how are you, my man? For everyone that's watching along and listening, who is Adam Niec?
Man, that's a good question. You know, I was at an event like probably 3 months ago, and this guy was talking about like identity, right? Like a lot of people like to say, oh, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, whatever the fuck. I'm Adam Niec, and I do a lot of different things. I have a family. My wife and I we're coming up on 5 years of marriage. We just had our third child a week ago, right? Thank you. Yeah. And I love my family. I love business. I like to work out and play golf. So I do a lot of that stuff. I'm not really any good at golf, and that's okay. I don't really try to be. I just like to go and have a good time, beers. You know? But who am I? That's a good question. Adam Niec, that's who I am.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And just for sort of to bring people up to speed, I'd love to talk a bit about, you know, your business. Or if you're okay with it, I'd like to focus on you exited from a business and started again. I saw you did this crazy awesome post the other day, just really opened up, and I'd love you to share a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I've been in payment processing for 9 years, and I sold for a big company for 5 years, and then I started a company. And for just to keep it simple, it was a partnership that didn't work out, right? Everything's all good. We had different beliefs and goals and things like that. So we parted ways, and I decided to restart a brand new payment processing company from scratch. And it was painful. There was like I mentioned in the post, you know, I was in a lot of debt. I went all in on a software that I built. I believe in this concept. It's called Rate Tracker. It's not really a concept anymore. It's here. It's a real thing. Yeah. It solves a real problem, and it's actually gaining a lot of traction. Like it's amazing what we're doing. I'm like very grateful. And it was like a short-term pain that has led to an already long-term gain after 14 months. And I'm really grateful for everything. Like it was an awesome experience. I've grown a lot. And I think that those are the kind of moments that define you as a person, as an entrepreneur. They challenge you. And, I was literally dead broke. Like I had no cash, tons of debt. And I was like, oh shit, I got to figure something out. And I did, like it still, kind of looking back on it, it feels like a blur. Like how the hell did we get through all that? And it really comes down to like grit, people, a plan, execution, and a little bit of badass luck.
Absolutely.
That's about it.
And it's not like you're a single dude, early 20s, no risk, no worry, doesn't work, do something else. You had a family, home, everything. You had every reason that it needed to work, but there must have been a lot of pressure as well.
Tons, man. I mean, we had a brand new baby boy. That was our second kid at the time. And you know how that is. Like you have a family and you have a baby, right? Or she's like 3 now, right? Something like that. All right. She's getting there. Yeah. So, we have responsibilities as men, right? One of our things we do is provide for our families typically. And, when that's not there, it actually affects your identity. Like kind of like what I was talking about earlier, like, cause that's like one of the ways I used to identify was like, I'm a provider, right? Like I provide for my family, and, I take pride in that. I think we all do, right? As successful entrepreneurs. And also, like, anyone that's successful has had those roller coaster moments. And I would say that my family, if I was a single dude and I had all that going on, like, it would be probably not, it probably wouldn't have happened as fast because I didn't have an option. The only way out was through. And so what I did was I got really, really granular, like how I spent my time. I did 75 hard. I cut back on a lot of bullshit and wasting time and stuff. I did my things I needed to do to get my business off the ground, or like relaunch, if you will. And I think a lot of it had to do with the regiment that I'm in. I'm still in it, I have designed my life around my
Yeah.
family,
I love that.
and my business fits into that, right? Best advice I ever got. I was at a mastermind that was like 4 years ago. This lady who was wildly successful, she looked at me, she's like, "You're gonna find success in whatever you do, right?" And she said, "Make sure that you don't lose your family in the process." A lot of us do that. Like, we think, "Oh, I'm doing this for them and I'm going to build this fucking empire." And yeah. And then you like don't spend time
Never
with them.
seen.
And when you're there, you're not
Yeah.
present. Like, fuck that. Like, I think that that's like the ultimate
Yeah.
oxymoron, if you will. I don't know if there's a better word, but my wife and I agreed, okay, it's going to take like about a year to get this thing off the ground again. And that's what it was, basically. I went back into sales. I sold a shit ton of accounts, serviced them, did all that. We had a team producing, back end processes going, but it was still a startup. And I would do my things. I didn't let my family suffer from that. I would wake up with the family. I would get the kids up, spend time with them, go to work, come home for lunch. I always give my wife an hour. I watch the kids from usually 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. She goes and works out usually.
Nice. Yeah.
And then I go back to work. And then I'm home from 5 to 8. Don't touch my phone. And then I don't really do it anymore because I don't really have to. But usually after 8 o'clock, I'd pick my phone up and respond to people and stuff. But now everything's pretty systemized. And I only deal with stuff after 8 if it's urgent. And usually it's not. It always can wait. And having that regiment I can equate it to when I played college football. And when I always had better grades during the football season because I didn't have time to fuck off. It was the spring semester where, oh, it's Tuesday at 1 o'clock. All right, cool. We got no practice. Let's get hammered, not do schoolwork, And but when you have practice and film and meetings and lifts and all your whatever, I knew when I could study. I knew when I could do my thing, and I had to do that. And it's the same concept. And it's a beautiful thing because I don't miss the precious time with my family, and I can still be productive, and I can still do the things that we all love to do as men, and it's balanced. The word balance doesn't make sense, I think, as an entrepreneur if you really want it. But I think I have the closest thing to it that I know, because it's just scheduling. It's
Absolutely.
blocking.
That's something we have that so much in common in that respect, being very intentional with your time, working to a schedule and actually working to it, not fucking around. You got your phone, blah, blah, blah. It's family time, but you're mucking around, sending emails, and you're never really in one spot focused on one thing. And I think that's really important for people to the amount of productivity you can get when you're insanely focused on the one thing at the one time, working to the calendar. You can do so much more than what most people think is possible. And you've done that. So it's really cool you shared.
Well, and the cool thing about that too is you can look back on your week and be like, how did I spend my time? What did I do? Okay, yeah, I had that time blocked. I did that. Did I really need to have that call, or should I have sent that person to my team, or should I just have not even done that call? Could I have done something better in that hour, that 30 minutes or whatever? And the concept of time blocking in general, it prevents you from losing that focus, right? We all have these big goals and big dreams. And if we're trying to do a bunch of different things, we got our hands over here doing this over, a lot of times we don't, we just kind of tread water versus swimming forward, right? And it can be a killer, right? It totally can crush every bit of momentum that we think we have.
It's like you're in a boat with one paddle just going around in a fucking circle.
Yeah, right? Not drinking from any
I'm busy, I'm doing stuff, but you're going nowhere.
Yeah. Hey, I'd rather be productive than busy all day, right? I think people that like to stay busy, I feel like they just actually hate their family and they don't want to be with them.
100%.
Or produce anything for them,
One thing because it's not easy to say. It's an awesome thing to identify and then implement. But a lot of people have the personality, which is my personality, where you're a butterfly chaser. You're looking at all the bright lights. You like the shiny new things. You're talking. You're doing 6 things at once. So a buddy of mine showed me this concept where I had to track everything I did in 15-minute blocks on an Excel spreadsheet for a month, I think it was. And you had to write down what you did in that 15 minutes. And the number of times that I was trying to do 6 or 7 things at once was insane. But just going through that process, it really started helping me weed out the nonsense and focus on the one thing. That and the lovely Mrs. Smith, she gives me a nice little kick up the where when I need it, which is what I need too. So
Yeah, right. Everybody needs that. So I'll say two things right now. So shiny object syndrome, I think, is what leads to
yeah,
burnout. Like, dude, I've done that. Like, I'll never forget. Like in my first year of like being an entrepreneur, I opened 4
wow,
LLCs. One was my payment company, an online ordering company, a website company, and then my software. 2 of those were just complete fucking waste of time. Like, why would I want to build websites and have a team or whatever to build them and do online ordering? Sure, that was a great thing to offer because we could serve the same merchant, but it's like, dude, I was in my first year of being an entrepreneur. Like, I didn't really have any money. I didn't know what I was doing. And it's the concept of like trying to do too much for
yeah,
little return, right? And then, so I think a lot of entrepreneurs think like, oh man, it's so easy to make money. And yeah, it is. But like, if you focus on one thing, that one thing for 10 years or 5 years or however long you want to do it, that will open the door for so many more things because you have
that's right.
momentum, you have money, team, you can do whatever. I think it's crazy. And like, my company is, I technically own 2 companies. The software sits on its own. The rate
Great
tracker
tracker.
software sits in its own LLC. And then I have the payments company, which is, it's just separated for like legal
Yeah,
reasons. And dude, like, I don't want to do anything else. You know, there's opportunity everywhere, but I'm sitting here like, okay, if I focus for like 10 years, this is a $1 billion exit, right? I want to solve a massive problem, help a lot of people, and have fun doing it. So like, why the fuck would I try to get into something else that's going to stop me from that main goal that I have in 10 years? I'm passionate about that because I think a lot of people waste their time chasing that shiny object. The other thing that you mentioned with time blocking is these things. I'm on my phone here in my basement, right? Whatever, if you want to call it a phone, this device, right? It's how we're communicating. It's got everything I could need to make money or to waste
yeah,
time. And I have it on Do Not Disturb. I've had it on Do Not Disturb for like 6 months, and that's the best fucking thing I ever
yeah,
accidentally did because, I mean, it's distracting to get text messages coming up top on the banner and calls, emails, Snapchats, and all that stuff. And it's like, if I'm dedicating this time to you, why would I want to be notified of like a group chat that I'm in? I'm sure I have 15 or 20 fucking texts that come in and I can look at them later, but most of everything is not urgent. And if you feel like everything is urgent, you probably just need to do a better job of systemizing and delegating so that you can stay focused on what you want to actually do in those time
absolutely.
blocks.
Yeah, that was something Katie, my wife, implemented for me. We turned off all notifications because we'll get, I don't know, 30 messages overnight and whatever, how many emails and everything else, and then all the apps they're dinging. They're literally designed to get dopamine going in your brain, so you want more, you look at more, you need the next thing. So we turned them all off. We put 2 times in the calendar a day where it's to check emails, respond to messages, and it starts to train people. It's actually better for both parties that it's time blocked like that. Hey,
Yeah, dude, you're right. So like it was probably like a year into, so let's call it 3 years ago, where I said to my team, customers, whatever, hey, I'm offline from 5 o'clock Eastern until 8 o'clock Eastern. You can't reach me. My phone sits on my counter or on my desk in the office on the charger, and I ain't checking it unless there's like a reason to, which there usually isn't. You know, 9 times out of 10, that thing gets a full charge from 5 to 8. And so it was definitely something that when I started that, it made me anxious because, like,
oh yeah,
oh, what's going on? Like, do people need things? Like, no, because they can call the team. They can call, like, there's ways to fix that, that get you out of the way as the owner. And it took like 6 months for people to realize, don't even text me during that time or text me saying, hey, I know you're not going to see this, but can you hit me up later or
mm,
tomorrow? Yeah. And then what happens is people start to realize, okay, that's when I can access
yeah,
Adam or that's when I can access Matt. And it puts you in control of your day versus your day in control of you.
100%. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. We're all so distracted and so accessible. There's a dude, Adam Niec. I know you know
Adam,
him.
yeah, great dude.
He's such an amazing guy. And he cares about everybody. He wants to help everybody. He always responds so quickly. And I asked him one day, I was like, dude, why do you do that? Like, how do you do that? And he goes, man, I'm glued to my phone. And and I'm like, yeah, but like you're building a business and you have like a lot of great things happening. Like, I'm your friend. I know that. But like, how do you do that? Because I'm not the only person that's contacting him. And that led him to putting his phone on Do Not Disturb. And he hit me up and told me, he's like, dude, thank you for that advice. Best
life changer.
We're way too. I think it's like a disease where this phone is amazing, but it's also like your worst enemy if you let 100%. It be. Got to control.
100%. I think that's great for everyone that's sort of listening along. It's a game changer, mate. I want to circle back. So you went into debt. You knew you had something great with payment processing and the core values that you live by, but you had to start from behind the eight ball. What did you do to build that business up under the pressure that you were on?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. So just to put it into perspective, so I had, let's just call it no money, like $2,000 cash is like all I had. Woke up one day and I was like, oh fuck. Like you kind of like, you're like, if you're dealing with like stressful money situations, you like might not check your bank account.
That's a next year problem.
Right. I'll get to that later. And so I remember like laying in bed, it was like 7 a.m. and I was like, I should check it. And I looked and it was like, oh fuck. Like I had a few bank accounts, like $2,000 roughly. And then checked my credit score and my Credit Karma, counted it up. I'm like, I got like 110,000 in short-term, like high interest debt, right? I was in the middle of like transitioning, right? And I knew that I was like making the right decision, right? Doing what I needed to do. And it was very humbling because like for the last 6 months of the first company, I was able to not really have to sell much. It was like running on its own and we were growing it. It was cool. But I went back into sales. And thankfully, I've done a good job of building my machine, as Ryan Stewman would say. And just, I've been in the business for a while. So a lot of people know who I am and what I do. And I have a lot of business still coming in, right? I went and sold those accounts. I did that, built up the revenue. Like, so payment processing is a residual business. 90% of my revenue is residual. We get upfront bonuses. We have other means of revenue that comes in. But we built in about 11 months, we built a 7-figure run rate, right? In terms of like residual money that comes in from our existing clients. And we add to it every month. It's cool. Beautiful. What I did, it's an amazing thing. But when you don't have it and you have expenses, it kind of sucks. So when we split, I inherited a lot of the expenses, labor, the office, the CRM, like stuff like, it was like $28,000 a month. Yeah, man, it sucked. And so I borrowed some money from Adam McChesney, actually.
What a dude.
Yeah, dude, he loaned me some money and he was like, hey, and actually I just paid him back the last payment on February 1st.
That's awesome.
So like a few days ago. Yeah, man, he made some money on that. That's good. And that was like a good bridge. And what I did was I worked a deal out with the owner of the processor that we work with, like a majority of our clients go to, and they paid a higher upfront bonus. So like if I sold the deal, the business got a bigger, like it was $1,000, right? So I was averaging like 15 accounts a month roughly. I was putting money in the bank and I was able to like pay for most of the expenses and then figured out how to cover the rest. Like I said, it's a blur. I don't know how. I could go back into the bank statements and look, but so I did that, sold. I also like trimmed the fat with, I brought on most of the team. That was a lot of the expenses, was like the labor. And we systemized everything. Like I kind of took a step back and I said, we're going to figure out like how every single person on this team is going to use their time. Right. And it was either going to be offensive or defensive. Offensive means you're getting business, you're creating leads, wherever we're going to go sell it. Defensive is you're servicing a client, taking care of an admin related thing, whatever. And the team just did it, man. Like I sold my ass off like until middle of June. And I'll never forget, I got home I signed up like a 3-location restaurant. It's a nice account. And I got home, instead of going back to the office, and I took a nap. And my wife was like so happy that I did that because I was just hustling, dude. There was no other option, and we were still in bleeding money. Like it wasn't like we started from zero. We started from negative 28,000. So we did that shit, got it off the ground, and we broke even that month too. Was it June? No, it was July because it was from June's. Yeah, it was July, but I knew that we were going to get there in July from June's production. And now it's been more of like, okay, we got this team. We're bringing on new sales reps every day. Like we're scaling now. And I would say that like the main 3 things that mattered was number one, pure grit. Like I want it, right? There's nothing that will stop me from getting my goal like achieved. And the first goal was just put food on the table for my family and be able to survive. That's really easy because it's not like I had an option.
Winning was
right?
breathing to you.
Number two, yeah, like E.T. says.
I love that.
You ever see that video?
Yeah, I love it.
It's a badass video. I saw that in college. One of our football coaches showed us that. It was cool. And so I didn't have an option, man. My back was against the wall. The only way out was through. And I really cared about the people that transitioned with me. I told them all, I said, I got you. Like, well, I'll take care of you. We're going to do this. And they believed me. I was Venmoing them out of my bank account, like, because I didn't even have the LLC yet. And not one of them missed payroll. So, like, I always say this, one of my favorite accomplishments as an entrepreneur is throughout that time, everybody on my team got paid. Never missed a paycheck. Yeah, it's fucking cool. And then the second part of it is the people, right? So I had the right people that were on offense and defense. They were aligned. They were excited. And we trimmed it down. We didn't have a bunch of dead weight. It was like the people that were there were productive and they were precise. And then the last part of it's the execution. Like, we need clients. That's it. So, everybody went out and did it. And everybody kind of fed the company's residual cash flow, and now we're all benefiting from it. And we still feel like, we say this all the time, we feel like we're just getting started. So yeah, those are like the three things. Like, it's the determination or the grit, the people, and the execution.
Absolutely. You shared plenty of good stuff there, mate. I want to dig in a little bit deeper, and I'm going to ask you about the BYM, build your machine, because not everyone will know what that means. I also want to sort of touch on to the untrained or uneducated person in regard to payment processing. They're like, oh yeah, it's all about rates. It's oh fuck, I got PayPal, I got Stripe, I got what why would I choose Adam? Like, so there's two parts to that question, and they kind of lead in together. I'd love you to share a bit about that.
So building your machine, that's a concept that basically any person can decide they want to do this. And it's basically like creating power versus force, as Mr. Stuman says. Building up your social media following, posting on your page every day, getting on podcasts like this, or writing a book, or making your own podcast, or drinking from skulls like you do. When you do that, it creates awareness about your product. And I think that that's the most important thing for anyone in sales or anyone starting a business. Typically, the people that start businesses, they came from sales, right? Like, I sold payment processing, and then I was like, well, fuck, I want to do this myself. And then I started my own company. That was it, right? And I had the leads. Apex, Ryan Stewman's network and his mastermind gave me the confidence and the network and the know-how of like how to make the leap and start my own company. And I wish I did it sooner. You know, I was scared as hell doing it, but which I'm sure you were too. Everybody is, like, when they make that decision. But it's like one of those things where you put yourself through that short-term pain for the long-term gain and make the leap and trust in yourself and all those cute little cliche one-liners. But when you build your machine, you create an audience, and people that buy from you, they trust you, they know you. Like, a lot of people, when they hear payment processing, they think rate tracker. They think Adam Niec, and that's cool. I built that I've been doing this for 4 years. I have not missed a day since January of 2019 of posting from my personal page on Facebook. And I stick with that. That's my favorite platform because I like to read and I like to write. And there's just a lot of people that either they hit me up and say, hey, I need an account, or hey, my friend needs an account, connect them. And then it's a beautiful thing when you have like those leads coming in. Because as a salesperson, that's really what I was when I restarted. I was a salesperson running a business in the back end. You need leads, you need opportunities. And if you don't have them, what are you going to do? That's sales 101. And it's like, what are you going to do? Go knock on doors, right? That works for roofers, but it doesn't work for my business. I mean, it can. It sucks. You might get like one or two opportunities in like a whole day of door knocking, and that sucks. So that's the build your machine. Build up the awareness, create your own opportunities, become like your unstoppable force with your own audience that you can sell stuff to, whatever it is. And then why would somebody pick us over Stripe?
Yeah, like what? So you just post? I kind of know, but I'm sharing this for everyone that's watching. Do you just share shit about payment processing, or how's that work?
Yeah, like a lot of it's educational, add value. There's situations where people should use Stripe or PayPal or Square. Like, those are the biggest companies. Like, well, I should say that. They're very well known. They're not the biggest, but they like. Most people think, oh, I'll just sign up with Square because I need a little mobile reader, or oh, I have a website, I'll use Stripe, or "Oh, I just want something simple. I'll use PayPal." Those companies do a great job serving their niche. The biggest challenge that they have is risk
Yeah.
mitigation. And like the reason why you wouldn't work with them if you're two things. If you're doing more than 10 grand a month, you probably should use a direct processor. That's what we are. Or if you really plan to scale, because you need a team behind that to manage your money, and you need the risk to be mitigated on your account. Because if it's not, and you ramp up your sales, you have a great week because you release a new offer, or you are just growing your business, they're going to hold your money and be like, "Oh, sorry, we'll release it in 90 days or 180 days." And that doesn't happen with us because we know the risk, we understand the business, and everybody has next day funding for the most part. If there is an issue with funding, it's because of two things: fraud, or like a ridiculously big transaction. $180,000 sale. We had that happen like a couple weeks ago. One of our clients, they were approved to do $30,000 sales, and they ran one for 180 because they had a really big order. They sell dental supplies. And they were like, the money got froze on a Friday, and it was in their bank account on Monday because we got the processor invoices and a purchase agreement and bank statements. They had like $1 million in cash in their bank account, and they could support the risk of that transaction. So the processor was like, "All right, yeah, we'll dump it in there." And I was proud of that because I wasn't even involved. My team handled it. Awesome. But that's the stuff we do. And, we refer people to Stripe and Square and PayPal because sometimes it's the best fit, But if you really want to scale, and if you really want to have a team behind your mission that will manage your money, we're the company for that.
I have experience in this space. I got started with PayPal just because I needed something to process overseas. I see what I'm about to talk about is what I see in Facebook groups all the time. And I want to get people to think about what would happen if let's say, you're doing well, you've processed 40, 50, 70K, and it gets stopped, it gets held. And 90 days, that's fairly standard? It can be 30, 60, 90,
yeah,
depending.
Usually it's 90 or 180. It really depends on the situation. So like if it's because a bunch of people are disputing transactions saying it's fraud, or they didn't get what they paid for, or like this person's a ripoff, like it could be longer. Yeah. But if it's big money ramped up quickly, it's usually like 90 days. Just because it buffers their potential losses. Because here's what happens. If I'm a business and I run $100,000 transaction and that money gets deposited into my bank account, and I spend it, and the customer that paid me $100K disputes it, if I don't have $100,000 in my bank account, the processor's on the hook. Stripe's on PayPal, Square. They're the ones that have to eat that cost because it's got to come from somewhere. And they're really great with onboarding and integrations. Like you said, I just need something that would do international payments and it's simple. You probably got signed up in 10 minutes, right? And your business has grown, right? And if you had challenges with it, it's like PayPal is going to freeze it and they don't care. You'll have email support to deal with, which that works for them because they process billions of dollars, probably 100 billions, and they don't give a shit. No offense. I mean, I think you're a great guy, but PayPal doesn't give a shit about you.
And that's what I want to get people to think about. What happens if I was lucky. I've never had a disputed transaction. It will happen. It's a law of averages. It will happen. But I've seen so many people. They get 20, 40, 50K locked up. They've still got to pay their team. Imagine the scenario where you were in. You had 28 grand in ongoing expenses. Imagine if the money didn't get in, the business would be done. I've seen it so many times, and it's not talked about much. And I think that's some of the massive value that you provide is that you add so much value to your clients in that respect. Is that fair? You pick up the pieces. I've seen it so many times. It's not talked about enough. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
Well, shit, I'll talk about it some more. Thank you. Because it's actually, so like everybody says like, "Oh, why do you love payment processing so much?" And it's because I love small business and I love entrepreneurship, and I love watching a family business run, feed their family, serve the community, keep the money local, right? And it's like processing is risky and it's necessary. It's like you say it's a necessary evil. But dude, like there's so many flaws with how it flows now. And I'll be the first to tell you that like it's got to be reformed, right? It like that's why I think crypto is like probably going to totally put me out of business in like 15 years. Maybe not totally. It's such a big industry, and I don't think it's going to like stop what I'm doing. It'll slow us down. It'll cut into our revenue, but it's a big world out there. I never, it's funny you mentioned that. I've never thought about the concept of like, what if we didn't get
Yeah.
paid? The money comes straight. Our revenue comes straight from our
Yeah.
processors. So like they pay us because it's easy to do that. Like there's no risk there. At least there's a little bit of risk. I mean, we're not going to, but I didn't think about that. That's really thing that you brought that up. And it makes me think even more of like, wow, like that's a real problem. I talk about it from like the sales side because like, I want to help people. I want to grow my business. I want to make money and all that shit. But you don't really like, I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
I have a couple merchant accounts because we take payments for stuff, but like we've never had an issue because we have good.
Absolutely.
But like, that's an interesting thought, dude.
And I see because you'll get tagged in. It's the biggest risk no one talks about, and it's only something you would focus on when it happens to you. But that is the big risk with a PayPal, a Stripe that I know of. We have a US bank account. We use Stripe. I can't wait till we can get our stuff to sync with you. And it's for that reason. Imagine like how are you going to support your team? How are you going to keep running your business if a big amount goes held for a while?
Yeah, it's funny you say like I've never had a chargeback. Like a lot of people that do what you do, all the fake marketers, they have chargebacks all the time because they deliver shit or they take money and they don't deliver anything or they suck. And like, I'm not surprised. I figured you have a really clean account or clean accounts, but ultimately, yeah, like I'm sure your business would be fine if you had a money freeze for like a little bit because you could easily adapt. Like you're smart, you've been in business, but like picture like the guy who's 6 months into his business and is using Stripe, doesn't know what to do. Like most people start with those companies because it's easy. That's why the companies scaled and they're beautiful. Like I've studied those companies and I'm like, dude, I want to do that. I want to create that same type of empire. Stripe, I saw this thing online. Stripe is worth $95 billion.
We got to get a draw from them.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure they would too. They might freeze. There's a documentary called 6 Lines of Code, or I think it's 7 Lines of Code. They changed the industry with 7 lines of code. And I'm getting real nerdy on you, but they made it easy to work with, get signed up immediately, and then be able to process right away. And they do really good with developers, software developers, website developers, people that like can put the pieces into the place so that a business can take a payment. Strategy, and that's how the Collison brothers became multi-billionaires. And in 13 years, they built that empire. And in our software, we have the same type of functionality inside of the rate tracker software where you can sign up, you can track your rate, you can get offered a rate, you can lock that rate in, and then you can start processing payments within 10 or 15 minutes. The difference, we perform like a secondary underwriting. Yeah, you can start moving your money, and most of the time it's good. We're still going to reach out to you and be like, hey, can you provide us bank statements? Or, hey, we're here to support you if you need anything. Because like the reason why Stripe gets away with that type of onboarding is because most of the time it's good volume. Most of the time you're not having people getting hit with chargebacks and fraud and stuff, but it happens. They play the macro game, and I still think that there's a niche that you can like better serve somebody just because of that, like with the people behind it. So.
No, I love that.
Shameless plug.
No, absolutely. I got an off-topic question for you. Are you really 7 foot tall? I've been telling people you are.
7.5, actually. Yep. I was going to ask you something.
Hit me.
Do you really own Australia, the island?
Only for internet purposes. In reality, no, I do not. But a lot of people in America might think that I do.
I thought you did. I'm kind of disappointed.
I've staked a claim.
Is it a commonwealth? What is it like? Is it a country, a continent?
Yeah, it's Commonwealth. So we are technically under like the British, but they signed away all the rights and stuff that they have to do with Australia, other than a figurehead sort of thing, 20 years ago or something.
Was it really 20 years ago?
Like that. Wow. I wouldn't listen to them anyway, British or Aussie. I don't care.
No, they're very ugly. My wife actually. So what's cool about our story, we dated for a year in high school, and then we broke up for a little bit over 6 years. And when we were apart, she lived in Australia for a year.
Wow.
She was an au pair in some place, and then went to the Gold Coast and then Brisbane.
That's where I grew up.
And I told her that, oh, really? She was like, where is he from? And I was like, I don't know. He owns the island. Where the fuck he wants to go. And she said it's incredible there. I've never been there. When our kids are like a little bit older, if you'll let us stay on your island, we'll come out there.
Definitely. We do have a little. I bought my wife and I bought 10 acres, and it backs into this little bush reserve mountainy type thing. So we stand up high and yell at people, and sometimes they listen. So you're more than welcome to come here.
Nice. That's just like your business, right? You yell at people.
Yeah, sometimes they listen.
You get roofer leads, right?
Yeah.
Dude, I'll never forget one time I was like, it was when we were apart. So I learned the art of following up when I was, because my wife dumped me. Like she had the upper hand for 6 years, and I was just kind of like waiting for her to come back. And like, I'll say that, like, I'm open about everything, right? We both dated other people. We had like our like college experience and whatever. And she sent me this video of these two kangaroos. I'll send it to you. It's probably buried somewhere in my emails. Two kangaroos fighting. I was like, holy shit. It was like by sunset, like right by the water. It was really awesome. And I'll never forget, she like emailed that to me. And I was like, oh, she loves me. She's coming back. And, that's like my only memory of Australia. But.
And how did you win her back over? How did you close the deal? The ultimate deal.
Dude, I hit her up every day. And I actually, like, the secret was I stayed very close with her family. Yep. It's very creepy. This house that I'm in right
ethically
now,
creepy.
Bought it from my mother.
We'll just put the context there.
Yeah, ethically, and yeah. And we we grew up in the same. Yeah. Oh yeah. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted the night I met her. When I was 18. I was 18 years old. Yeah, that was 13 years ago. Wow. Holy shit. Yeah, and so we were from the same town. And so we dated, like, it was like a year, right? And then families got close. It was cool. And then I went to college, and it wasn't, it's hard to do that when you're apart. And I used to hang out with her dad all the time.
Yeah.
And I come up, drink beer with him, and shoot the shit. And then he passed away. We got back together, married, had a baby. And then, like, he passed away, coming up on 3 years ago, March 7th, 2020. And so we bought this house from my mother-in-law. And so we live here. It's really cool. And I think that I showed her, hey, I'm never going to stop contacting you. I love you, basically. And yeah, and my not befriending, but staying close with her family, I knew that was like the backdoor entry, And so I learned how to follow up before I even got into sales. And right. I called the damn leads. I messaged her on Facebook. That was my benefit.
That's awesome. That's something else that you've done really well is you actually share the good, the bad, the ugly, all the experiences, the stories you've mentioned today. I've read about because you put that out there. Is that part of how you've made payment processing cool in your way?
Yeah, I think that we're all human. We all have the same DNA and the makeup, and like there's no reason to try to like be something you're not, like I'm sitting here telling you I have a 7-figure business and I built it with a team in like 11 months. I'll show you bank statements. I don't have anything to fucking hide, right? I don't do anything illegal. I am proud of that, actually.
As you should be.
But I think that like there's a lot of, how do I say this? Like we all think like, oh, I need to like prop myself up and be better than I am. And it's like, why?
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Like, fuck that. And like, there's a book called The Gain and the Gap. Have you heard of it? So I urge any entrepreneur to read that book. It's incredible. And it's like, we all live in this like, oh man, like one day I'll have this, or I'm going to ramp up to that and I'm growing. And the author basically says that's the worst mindset to be in because you'll never be happy. Look back and like measure backwards, I want to have an 8-figure business, right? I'm at 7 right now. We'll hit 8 figures in 2024. But like I'm living the dream right now, I'm sitting in the basement here at my home and there's toys in here now.
There we go.
Yeah. We got a balance beam for my daughter and my son. And there used to be a couch over there where my wife and I would come down here and we'd make out, back in high school. Don't tell my in-law, my mother-in-law. And like, I think that it's just best to be real. Like there's no, like the social media world and the marketers and all the fucking gurus, like they like to put on this show and it's like, yo, we're real people, show.
And unfortunately that the BS show that they put on makes other people look and compare themselves and do stupid shit because of what they think other people are doing. And you'd see it more than anyone with all the accounts you handle, what money's actually coming in. I can normally figure it
Yeah.
out by just talking to them, and they don't know shit about tax. They're not at the level that they're claiming to be. But yeah, you would see that quite a bit.
Yeah, and it's cool because like I am very grateful. Like I've always been a money guy, and not money,
Yeah.
numbers. And I was an economics major, right? So I understand like the theories that are totally just a bunch of bullshit. I can break economics down into like one sentence, right? People manage scarce resources the best way they think they can. that's
There you go. We got
right?
a degree today. That's awesome.
Yeah, right. I'll sign it later. Fax it to me, right? Do they have a fax in Australia?
Maybe.
Okay, well, let me know. And so like finances and money and payments, right? That tells the story of a business, of a person. Like, are they growing? Are they dying? Like, what are they doing, right? How are they positioned? Like, it's all like phases. It's all like where you're at now. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people that say like, oh, I did this in 30 days and scaled to 12 billion in an hour because they want people to pay them, right? That's the reason. And it's like, there's an audience for everyone, I say, right? There's an audience. If you started a business and you were able to be successful in it for like a year even, and you did 6 figures by yourself, maybe with like an admin or 2 or like whatever, that's great. There's a ton of people that are sitting there. They have a job that they want to get out of it. And you didn't take home 6 figures. If they say you did $200,000 in revenue, that's great. It's a good start. And you might have taken home like 80 or 60 or whatever the fuck. Maybe you lost money. I don't know. But you took the leap that was required to get out of that comfortable like 9 to 5 with benefits. And there's a ton of people that would want that. There's a ton of people that would want to grow their 6-figure business to 7. I don't want to coach. I'm like, that's not what I want to do. But I'm sure that people would hire me for that because I've done I've done the scratch to 7, right? And I would hire somebody. I have hired somebody that's at 8 because I want to get there. And so what I'm saying is that it's better to just be authentic and be yourself. Yeah. And that's how we do our business too, right? That's how I am as a person. I've always been that way. And my favorite core value besides family first is the long game. So long game means that like you're real with yourself, you're real with your people, you take care of yourself, you cultivate relationships, you only burn the right bridges that you need to burn, and you maintain the ones that you want to keep. And if you fuck around with lying, it always catches 100%. Up to you. I've learned that back in the day. Like I learned that way back in the day, and I just choose to be honest and ethical and transparent, and it's the best way to do 100%. Business.
Adam, you've been great today, mate. Any final words before we wrap up?
No, man. I mean, I think this was awesome. I'm like fired up right now. It's almost 9. It's 9 o'clock my time, and I want to go for a run instead of go to bed. But I think that you're an incredible dude, and I'm inspired by you and what you've built.
Appreciate that.
I think that you're one of the funniest people I've ever met that I didn't meet actually, and I'm just grateful that you had me on here, man. Thank you.
Thanks for saying that, mate. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram, Payments Dude, or you could just look me up on Facebook, Adam Niec, N as in Nancy, IEC as in Caterpillar. Beautiful. Or you can go to our website, www.raytracker.io.
There you go. Well, my man, it's time to wrap up. Thank you very much. And for the viewers and subscribers, look out for the next episode. Cheers.